So I said I was going to talk about the Gothic Remake some more, and I intend to do that, but first I think that there's something else we need to talk about. And that is more to do with the language that developers are using. You see, because THQ is calling this a Gothic Remake, and they throw around the Gothic Remake hashtag left, right, and center every time they talk about it. The problem here is that I don't think this game is a remake. Based on what I've seen from the teaser, this is not. It's not a remake. A remake should be comparable to a remaster. And for those that are unaware, a remastering is using the original game code and sprucing it up to be as good as it can be, and a remake is not using the original code but building what you had before in a new engine with some changes and updates for quality of life purposes. A good example of this, at least from what I've seen, is the Spyro remake. If you didn't know any better, you would say that it was the original code. It was just much prettier. And that's because they put a lot of effort into preserving absolutely everything they could about the game. The graphics are different, but the art direction is exactly the same. The music is very close, the sound effects are very close, even the voices are really close to the originals. It's quite impressive, really, and it shows just what can be done if you truly appreciate what you had before. But that's not what we're seeing here. Or at least, not what I'm seeing here. This is a complete revamping of every single aspect of the game. And sure, I didn't expect them to preserve the combat system because a lot of people complained about it, and the control scheme is way out of date. Those are fine changes to make when you're remaking a game with 20-year newer standards. And the reason why I'm having such a hard time calling this a remake is because so little of the original game is being preserved here. Sure, the location is the same, and I'm really happy with a lot of the changes they made there. It's quite well preserved and increased in detail. The biggest problem that I have, really, from what I've seen, is the characters. They seem to have reused all the character names, and even reused their roles for the appropriate characters, but they don't have any of the same personality that they used to. They don't look the way they used to, not even close. With graphics this dated, I would have expected some changes, but they've completely gone in a different direction with how all of the characters look. The armor design is something that I don't think needed to be changed, and would have at least shown that you were trying to preserve something from the original game, but you couldn't even do that. They've got this huge push for realism going on in the game, and that's perfectly fine if they had just called it a reboot, because that is what this game is. A reboot can be defined as taking an original game's core concepts and characters and a lot of other aspects of it and rejigging them, making something new with what you had, possibly going in a completely different direction. And that's what the playable teaser has shown me this game is. It's a reboot. It's taking a lot of the concepts, a lot of the characters, and it's changing things up. It's making it different. They're making this huge push for realism in the game, but realism isn't really a part of Gothic's world. It's believable enough, but it's a fantasy game. There's magic and stuff in it. I mean, at least I hope they kept the magic in it. They've redone the sword design as far as I can tell, and the swords are more realistically proportioned, but that's part of the problem. Big gaudy swords are a part of Gothic. Having varied sword design is hugely integral to the Gothic experience, at least to me. The original game had hundreds of different types of swords, and they were all so visually distinct. And the push to realism is going to take away a lot of that. There's only so many ways that you can make a realistically proportioned sword look different from another, and they're all going to blend together the same. And it's that taking away the variety. The thing is that in video games, fantasy video games especially, the push for realism is a fool's errand. And this is kind of classic reboot territory here, is taking something that was unique and making it the same as everything else. Let's take another look at the Thief reboot, because that's my favorite thing to take jabs at. On its own, it's a perfectly fine game, but as a Thief game, it took this very original premise, character set, and plot, and just kind of sanded it down till it was bland and pushed through the filter of modern expectations, modern stealth systems, and resembled almost nothing of what the original game's charm had. And that's what I fear for this. I'm only calling the language that THQ is using into question because I'm worried about why they're doing it. You see, to me at least, if they made the announcement and said they were going to make a Gothic reboot, I'd have been far less excited than I was about the prospects of a Gothic remake. And I'm worried that that's why they're using that language. They went so far as to put a whole page on the front of the teaser saying that they wanted to make the game that we wanted. And I'm sure that they got lots of comments from people about changes that needed to be made, that changes people wanted to be made to make it more of what they loved from the original game. The problem here is that I'm not seeing any evidence of that. It's been a year, and the only thing that THQ has really shown us is that screenshot of a scavenger. A completely redesigned scavenger that looks absolutely nothing like the original. A fan posted an updated 3D model of a scavenger that looks like it should be in this game, but sadly it's not. This is a reboot of a game that I love. It is not a remake of the game that I loved. And I just want them to be honest about that. I don't care if you want to re-envision the entire world of Gothic and reboot the entire series. Go for it. I'll be happy about it. I'm just not happy about the fact that you're trying to convince me that this is a remake, because a remake almost implies that the original no longer needs to exist because it's obsolete. And that's not the case with reboots. I mean, let's just go back to the Thief example. Thief 2014 came out. I still play Thief 2: The Metal Age over and over and over again because the new Thief doesn't do things that the old Thief does. Conversely, I will never play the original Spyro again because I have the remade version and it's so much better. Just something to think about. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And as always, have a good one.